Well, hey there. Just before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about our friends over at MAI Fulfillment. Now, they really are a smarter 3PL partner for e-commerce brands that need more than just basic pick, pack, and ship. Now, MAI handles the whole picture. Like we're talking D2C fulfillment, B2B distribution, retail-ready shipping, and inventory management. Like they handle returns and even a lot of value-added services, all backed by technology that keeps your orders, your inventory, and most importantly, your sales channels all connected. Now, here's what makes them different. With MAI, you're not just getting lost inside some massive, inflexible network. Like you get real systems with real visibility. And most importantly, there's real people who actually know your business. Like their warehouse team is actual MAI employees. Like they're not outsourced labor. And that means more control, like better accountability overall, and really a team that is trained to protect your accuracy, speed, and like most importantly, helping build your customer experience. And so whether you're scaling on Shopify or you're looking to expand into wholesale, managing maybe even a seasonal spike, or you're just kind of tired of feeling like another account number, maybe in a big box 3PL, MAI really does give you the structure to grow without losing control. So it's time to actually turn your fulfillment into a growth engine, not a bottleneck. And you can learn more about them and their process and their systems over at maifulfillment.com. That's maifulfillment.com. All right, let's jump into today's episode.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Hey there, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today's conversation is all about how the way your collection pages are sorted that I believe are quietly costing you sales. Now, if you've spent, let's say, I don't know, Sunday afternoon dragging products around inside the Shopify admin, trying to keep your bestsellers up near the top and maybe sold out items kind of out of the way, then I believe this episode is for you. Like really, that manual job really doesn't scale, and the results usually still aren't optimized for what actually matters. And so there really is a line right now between maybe sorting for popularity and sorting for profit. And I'd argue sorting for profit is probably a smarter and wiser long-term. And I really believe a lot of merchants are actually getting it wrong, which is the reason why I have my guest on today, Julia from Sortwise. Now, Sortwise is built for Shopify. They have a 5-star rating in the Shopify App Store. And actually, I recently wrote a listicle post of like other different types of top collection merchandising apps that are out there, and their solution ranked number 1, which is kind of the reason why I decided to have them on the show today. So my hope is that we're going to unpack like what does a good collection merchandising actually look like, why it might be important to you, and then what moves you could make this week, honestly, like right away, no matter where you are in your journey. You could be doing 10K a month, or you can be running a 7-figure operation. Doesn't matter. This episode is for you. Hi, Julia. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to share what Sortwise is all about.
So, Julia, just before we get into the Sortwise story, can you set the stage a bit for me here? Like, just so my audience understands, like, what is collection merchandising? And, where does Shopify's kind of default approach to this start to break down for a lot of brands that are growing?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So, at its core, collection merchandising is basically just how you arrange your products online to guide customers and to make more sales, right? So, think of it like walking into a physical boutique. When you step through those doors, those front tables aren't just set up randomly. They are specifically displaying the absolute best, trendiest pieces to grab your attention at the very first look. So, digital merchandising is doing that exact same thing just on your screen. And it's honestly a make or break deal because modern shoppers have absolutely zero patience. Statistically, 95% of people never even scroll past that very first page of a collection. So those first, let's say, 10 or 20 product slots are your real prime estate. So if somebody doesn't see something they love in the first 2 rows or so, they don't keep scrolling, they will just click out. Now, where does Shopify's default setup start breaking down? And it's usually the exact moment a brand starts to successfully scale. So, out of the box, Shopify's native sorting tools are super basic. You're pretty much stuck with rigid, static rules like, let's say, sorting alphabetically by price, all time bestsellers, or you're forced to drag and drop everything manually. And that manual trap is obviously a massive time sink for businesses. So let's say you have a growing store with about 500 SKUs. If your top seller goes out of stock, Shopify doesn't automatically move it. It just sits there at the top of your page. And when a customer clicks on it, they hit a sold out dead end and then they get frustrated. So they'll click out, right? To fix that natively, a merchant has to spend hours every single week manually dragging things around just to bury those out of stock items and then also push the new arrivals up. So it's just not realistic. It's not scalable. You can't stay up 24/7 monitoring inventory, your trends, margins across dozens of collection pages, right? So that's the exact breaking point. And honestly, it's also why we built Sortwise to be able to automate that entire headache.
All right, so walk me through what's actually happening when a shopper clicks on a product on a collection page and it redirects them to a sold out listing. Like, why does that one experience cost more than merchants actually realize?
Absolutely, it is a silent killer. But I will say that it's a little bit more subtle than that because, see, realistically, most shoppers won't even click on a sold out item since they have a badge indicating it on the collection page. The real problem here is the real estate waste. So imagine a shopper lands on your page and the first two very critical rows are just grayed out, sold out, and out of stock items. They aren't necessarily clicking, but they are also not seeing the stuff they actually want to purchase. So I would call it a triple loss because first, you obviously lost that immediate sale. Second, you've completely wasted your acquisition dollars. So hypothetically, you paid for ads or SEO to get that traffic in the first place. Now you're not showing the right products, or even worse, you are showing empty shelves. Third, you've completely hurt the long term customer value because if their first impression is a wall of sold out badges, they probably won't ever come back. And as the store scales, this becomes a manual nightmare because bestsellers naturally go out of stock. But because they're bestsellers, they also stay at the top. You end up paying premium ad dollars just to show people what they can't have, which is very ironic. And that's why automating this, so instantly pushing those sold out items to the bottom, isn't just about saving time. It's about making sure every pixel of your collection page is working to get you a sale.
Now, Sortwise is one of the only apps that I know of that combine three different things literally in one platform. Things like rule-based automation, which I believe is important, visual drag and drop for a little bit of manual work, and AI-powered sorting, where most tools kind of force merchants to kind of pick one of those. And so why do you think that you actually need all three of those? And when they work together, what's the benefits?
Yeah, so this is really the core of our philosophy because most tools force you into that corner, meaning you're either going all in on automation or you're stuck doing everything manually. But in the real world of e commerce, you actually need all three of those working together to ultimately get your best results. So think of it like this: you have the AI, which handles the very heavy lifting, meaning it's looking at real time data like click through rates, conversions, and revenue per view, while constantly tweaking the page to manage your sales 24/7. But AI is not perfect because it doesn't know your business context, right? That's where rules come in to protect your business logic. For example, the AI doesn't know that you have excess inventory in a warehouse that you absolutely must liquidate, or that you have specific high margin products that you want to prioritize. Rules like that set those guardrails. So then finally, you have visual drag and drop for that human touch. So sometimes you just need creative control, right? Let's say it's Black Friday or you're launching a brand new collection. You want to manually pin your hero products right at the top of your grid. So the real magic is that all three things don't fight each other, they actually layer over each other and they layer together. So you get the speed and efficiency of AI, the safety of your business rules, and the creative control of the human merchandiser. So it means your pages are always optimized and you're also always in the driver's seat.
All right. Now, most stores, I'd say any store really, can sort by bestsellers. That's kind of a default in a lot of themes. But I believe that the sharper operators that are listening here, they want merchandising for profit, not just popularity. And so, how does a merchant use Sortwise maybe to surface their highest margin products without making the storefront a little bit feel like a clearance bin?
Yes, this is a huge one because most default setups just sort by popularity, meaning whatever sells the most volume will sit at the very top. But as any operator knows, volume does not always equal profit necessarily. You could be selling thousands of a cheap, low margin t shirt while your highest margin jacket is buried on, let's say, page three. But merchants are always very terrified that if they force high margin items to the top, the page is going to look disjointed or worse, kind of like a clearance bin of stuff they're just desperate to get rid of. And customers can smell that lack of curation a mile away, meaning they will most likely click out. So we solved this at Sortwise pretty elegantly because first we blend popularity with profitability. Instead of making you choose one or the other, our algorithm treats profit margin as a weighted factor alongside actual customer demand. So it looks for that sweet spot and products that are both trending with buyers and highly lucrative for your bottom line. Second, we have what we call a smart invalidation shield. So if a high margin product has terrible click through rates or, let's say, poor conversions, the system naturally pushes it back down. It prevents you from forcing a dud into your prime digital real estate just because a spreadsheet says it may have a great margin. And third, you can set contextual rules. So you can say, hey, only boost high margin items if they have at least a 4.5-star rating and are fully in stock. The end result is that your storefront stays beautifully curated and highly relevant to the customer, but behind the scenes, you're silently steering the traffic towards items that put the most actual dollars into your bank account. And it's merchandising for your bottom line, not just the top line.
All right. Now, every Shopify app right now claims AI in their marketing. I mean, it seems like almost table stakes right now. So, what is your AI actually doing under the hood? Like, what data is it analyzing? And how does a merchant know when to trust it versus maybe overriding it manually?
Yes, AI has definitely become a bit of a hollow buzzword. Many apps are just running basic scripts, but we built actual machine learning that is constantly crunching live metrics. So things like click through rates and, more importantly, revenue per view, also known as RPV. I would say RPV is our North Star because it tells us exactly which products are generating cash in real time. And I tell merchants to trust the AI for about 90% of day to day optimization. That's impossible for a human to track. But keep in mind that you still should be reviewing and overriding it for your strategy. So if you're launching a fresh product line, the AI has no history of it and no history to work with. So that's when you step in. And it's like an autopilot. So the system handles the micro adjustments, but the merchant is still the captain in the cockpit. And that's very important to remember as well.
Now, you've built collection analytics directly into the Sortwise app. Now, question for you is what metrics should a merchant be watching to know if their merchandising is actually working? That's kind of my first question. And part two of that is like, what's the difference between a collection maybe that's performing really well versus one that maybe might need to rethink how we're executing with it?
Yeah, we realized merchants were flying blind. So we built analytics right into the app. You really only need to watch two metrics, one being click through rate by position, also known as CTR, and the RPV. So, CTR by position tells you if your prime real estate, so those top two defining rows, are actually working. And if you have high collection views but no clicks, you're showing the wrong products. RPV is the ultimate truth teller here, and it measures the cash generated every time a page loads. So if your traffic is up but RPV is down, you're bearing the items people actually want to buy. With Sortwise, you don't have to guess at all. The dashboard literally flags the collections that have high traffic but low RPV, so you know exactly which page to fix first.
Now, there's many different types of brands that are listening to this podcast, and I think everybody has a different kind of entrepreneurial journey and their complexity. Some stores that are doing like 50K a month, and maybe other stores are doing upwards of 500K a month. And I'd argue probably they both have a collection problem, but they likely look a little bit different depending on your complexity and your GMV maturity. And so, can you talk about those two different levels for me? Like, where should each of those types of brands focus today?
This is such an important distinction because scaling an e commerce business isn't just about getting bigger, it completely changes the physics of your storefront as well. So, when you're at $50,000 a month versus those $500,000 a month, your pain points are looking completely different. So, let's start with $50,000 a month. At this stage, your biggest bottleneck is usually just bandwidth and baseline conversion. So you're likely a very small team, maybe even a solo founder wearing 10 different hats. You do not have the time to sit in Shopify and drag and drop items every single day manually. So your focus here is simply plugging leaks and buying back your time. Therefore, you need the basic hands off automation to set up rules to automatically push those out of stock items to the bottom and then let a basic smart sort handle the rest. You just want a system that gives you a nice 10% lift in conversion without adding those 5+ hours to your work week. So now, if you are looking at a $500,000 a month merchant, you've already solved product market fit, but your catalog has likely exploded. So now your problem is a little different because it is actually inefficiency and missed margin. Think of it like this: you have deep collections, massive traffic, and serious data complexity. Because you have so many products, your highest margin items, or let's say those that you call hidden gems, are constantly being buried. So at this scale, your focus has to switch to algorithmic optimization and the bottom line profit, right? You need predictive AI analyzing real time intent data, click through rates, and revenue per view. You also should be layering business rules on top of that AI to deliberately steal traffic toward your profitable SKUs. So, to put it into perspective, a $50,000 a month merchant uses this collection tool like an insurance policy, right? It saves you time and it stops you from making those silly mistakes. But at $500,000 a month, it's a sophisticated revenue engine where even a 1 or 2% optimization in shelf space translates to even tens of thousands of dollars straight into your bottom line.
All right. So, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see merchants actually make when they finally start taking collection merchandising seriously? Like, are there any traps that even like kind of smart operators can fall into?
Yep, even the sharpest operators I know fall into these traps because merchandising feels very intuitive. But in e commerce, human intuition often loses to data. And when merchants finally decide to take this seriously, they almost always hit three massive potholes. So the first is what I call the set it and forget it delusion. Um, a merchant will spend an entire weekend setting up the perfect collection layout, right? It looks beautiful, it's aligned with their brand strategy, and they walk away. But 2 weeks later, trends have shifted, inventory levels have dropped, and a perfect layout is now completely out of date that quick. So, merchandising isn't just a project you check off of a list, it's actually a living and breathing process. So, the second is the popularity bias trap. And this is where smart operators sort purely by their historical bestsellers. And it makes sense on paper, but it creates this dangerous doom loop. So if product A is at the top, it gets all the traffic, so it keeps selling, right? Which keeps it at the very top. Meanwhile, product B, which might actually have a much higher profit margin or even a better conversion rate, is buried on page 2 where nobody ever sees it. Sorting purely by raw popularity hides your actual growth drivers, and that's definitely a problem. The third trap is overcomplicating things with way too many rules. So we see merchants open up Sortwise and just go rule crazy. And they'll create these crazy logic chains like if it's red and if it's under $50, but only if it's over 4 stars and only on Tuesdays, and it goes on. They build this spider web of conflicting rules that completely chokes out the layout. And this over optimization leads to the point where the page feels very rigid and they don't leave any room for that real time customer behavior to guide their algorithm. And my biggest takeaway for brands from what I've seen is that you want to set the guardrails but not micromanage the entire highway. So, of course, use rules to enforce your critical business logistics like bearing out of stock items, but then trust real time data to also handle the day to day heavy lifting.
Now, Julia, for a merchant that's listening right now who wants to act on all this information that we have and they want to do something, they want to take some action over the next 24 hours, like what's the highest leverage thing that you believe they should do right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, if you want to immediately stop a massive revenue leak in the next 24 hours, you can do this tonight. Okay. Go audit your top 3 highest traffic collection pages. And don't look at your analytics dashboard. Okay. Actually, go to your storefront on your phone and look at those collections exactly like a customer would. Count how many out of stock items, low margin accessories, or even slow moving items are sitting in your top 12 product slots. I say this because for most growing brands, the first page is littered with digital dead ends or items that don't move the needle for your bottom line. So if you want to fix it instantly, you don't need some massive multi week strategy. You just implement 2 basic guardrails, okay? First, bury the dead weight. Set a hard rule that automatically pushes those out of stock items or products with broken size runs to the absolute bottom of your page. Stop paying premium ad dollars to send high intent traffic to a sold out button, okay? Please. Second, prioritize your high margin movers. So take your top performing, highest margin products and explicitly pin them to those top 2 rows so they get maximum visibility. And that alone will instantly protect your conversion rates, lift your average order value, and even buy your team back hours of manual dragging and dropping. If you don't want to do that manually every week, that's exactly why we offer a completely free trial of Sortwise. You can plug it in, set up those 2 rules in 10 minutes, and watch your revenue per view climb on autopilot while you're just asleep.
All right. Now, as we wrap up today's show, do you have any kind of final thoughts or any takeaways that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh wow, that is a great question. Um, if I could leave your listeners with just one final thought, I think it would be this. Stop treating your collection pages like a digital filing cabinet. I say this because for years, the e commerce playbook has been all about spending thousands on TikTok ads and optimizing SEO and building beautiful email flows just to get people to your site. But if you're driving all that expensive high intent traffic to a collection page that is just unorganized or full of out of stock items or sorted by static, outdated rules, you're literally tripping at the finish line. Your collection pages represent the digital shelf of your store. So, in a physical shop, you would never let your worst selling or out of stock products clutter that front entrance while your profitable items are just hidden in the back room, right? So, as you head into your next growth phase, challenge your team to treat digital merchandising with the same respect that you treat your ad creative. When you combine smart automation, product profit-driven data, and beautiful curation, you're just saving hours of busy work. You're unlocking a massive hidden revenue leveler that was already sitting right under your nose.
All right. So, what do you recommend maybe as the next steps for those listeners right now who would like to learn more about Sortwise?
Yeah, of course. So the easiest next step is to head right over to the Shopify App Store and search for Sortwise. We absolutely know how busy merchants are, so we made getting started completely frictionless. And we do actually offer a 100% free plan for smaller stores that are just starting out. And of course, for the larger brands, you can jump into a free trial to actually test out the full AI capabilities and the rule systems completely risk free. So installation takes literally 2 clicks. It syncs with your store in the background, and you can have your first two automation guardrails set up, like automatically bearing out of stock items in less than 10 minutes.
Well, Julia, thanks again for sharing your insights and your recommendations today. Like, there's literally like this has been a great conversation, really packed with a lot of great strategy, real tactics. I really believe that merchants really can take action and use the information they've learned today. Like, I know I picked up a few things, and I hope everyone listening did too. For anyone who collection pages have been kind of quietly nagging at them, I think this is likely your sign to go out and check Sortwise out and see kind of what it can do for your store. So, Julia, once again, thanks so much for being on the show and transparently sharing today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today, and thank you to everybody for listening.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.